Blood sprays across the white tile in thick arterial bursts. The man on the gurney is dying, fast. But Dr. Whitmore won't touch him. He stands 3 feet back, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line of disgust. Unidentified, no insurance, probable gang involvement, Whitmore says, voice flat. Let county handle it. The trauma bay hums with controlled chaos, monitors beeping, residents shouting vitals, orderlies shuffling equipment. But no one moves to save the man bleeding out on the table. In the corner, a nurse in pale blue scrubs slowly sets down her coffee cup. Her name tag reads Clara Whitfield, but no one's looking at her. They never do. She's young, blonde, unremarkable, the kind of person who blends into hospital walls, but right now she's staring at the dying man like she's reading a language no one else can see. And then it happens. The patient's eyes snap open, wild, frantic, scanning the room like a sniper checking angles. His gaze locks onto Clara. Not the doctors, not the residents. Her. For half a second, something passes between them. Recognition. Not the kind you get from knowing someone's face, the kind you get from knowing how they move under fire. So here's the deal. This story doesn't end where you think it does. If you want to see how deep this goes, how a quiet nurse dismantles an entire conspiracy without raising her voice, stick around until the end. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you like watching the underestimated take back control, hit that like button. Let's go. Clara didn't move yet. She watched the man's chest rise and fall in shallow, uneven pulls. His shirt was soaked through, dark red spreading across his ribs. Entry wound, left side. Possibly nicked the lung. Definitely clipped something major. Whitmore, one of the residents said, voice tight. He's circling. We need to stabilize the paying patients first, Whitmore cut in. This one can wait for transport. Claire's jaw tightened, but she kept her face neutral. She'd learned a long time ago that showing emotion in a room full of doctors was like bleeding in front of sharks. She moved quietly to the supply cart, pulling gloves from the box without looking down. Muscle memory. Her hands knew the routine better than her brain did. Whitfield. Whitmore's voice was sharp now, aimed at her like a scalpel. I didn't ask for nursing involvement. He's hypotensive, Clara said evenly, snapping the gloves on. If we don't get a line in him in the next 60 seconds, transport won't matter. I'll decide what matters, then decide faster. The room went silent. Whitmore's face darkened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone whose paycheck was half his. But Clara was already moving. She stepped to the gurney, her hand steady as she reached for the man's wrist to check his pulse. His skin was cold, clammy, shock setting in hard. And then he moved, fast. His hand shot up and locked around her forearm, gripped tight enough to bruise. His eyes were wide, pupils blown, breath coming in ragged gasps. Get off her, someone shouted. 2 orderlies lunged forward, but Clara didn't flinch. She leaned in close, her voice low and calm. Reaper 6. The man's grip released instantly. His whole body went slack, eyes still locked on hers, but the wildness drained out of them. His breathing steadied, just a fraction, but enough. Clara straightened, pulling her arm back slowly. He's stable enough to listen now. Someone get me a trauma kit. No one moved. Whitmore stared at her like she'd just performed a magic trick he didn't have the instructions for. What the hell did you just say to him? He demanded. I told him he was safe, Clara said. That's not what you said. It's what he needed to hear. She didn't wait for permission. She grabbed the kit herself, tearing it open and laying out supplies in a clean line across the tray. IV catheter, saline, gauze, clamps, everything she needed to buy him time. Whitmore stepped closer, lowering his voice. You want to explain to me how you just disarmed a violent trauma patient with 2 words? I got lucky, Clara said, not looking up. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. She slid the IV needle into the man's arm with practiced precision, taping it down before hooking up the saline drip. His vitals were still weak, but they weren't crashing anymore. Whitmore didn't move. He just stood there, watching her work, his expression shifting from anger to something sharper. Suspicion. Who is he? Whitmore asked. I don't know. You know something. Clara finally looked up, meeting his eyes. I know he's bleeding out and you're wasting time. For a moment, Whitmore looked like he might push harder. But then his pager buzzed and he glanced down with a scowl. Fine. Stabilize him. But he's your problem now, Whitfield. Anything goes wrong, it's on you. He turned and walked out, his white coat billowing behind him like a cape. Clara exhaled slowly. The room started moving again, residents whispering, orderlies resetting equipment, the normal rhythm of the ER returning. But Clara stayed where she was, standing next to the gurney, watching the man's chest rise and fall. His eyes were still open, still watching her. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. His lips moved, barely a whisper. "Daniel Cross." Clara's stomach dropped. She knew that name. Not from the hospital, not from the news, from a letter. A letter her brother had sent her 3 years ago, 2 weeks before he died. "If anything happens to me, find Daniel Cross. He'll know what to do." Book shut. The next 2 hours were a blur. Clara worked fast, coordinating with the trauma team to get Daniel into imaging. The chest x-ray confirmed her suspicion: collapsed lung, bleeding into the pleural cavity. He needed surgery, but he was stable enough to hold for now. She stayed with him the whole time, keeping him conscious, keeping him calm, and trying very, very hard not to ask the questions burning holes in her brain. By the time they wheeled him into a recovery bay, the ER had quieted down. Night shift was settling in, the fluorescent lights casting everything in that cold, sterile glow that made Clara feel like she was working inside a morgue. She pulled up a chair next to Daniel's bed and sat down, arms crossed. "You gonna tell me what you were doing in an alley with a bullet in your chest?" she asked. Daniel's eyes opened slowly. He looked tired, bone-deep exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with blood loss. "Wrong place, wrong time," he said. "Try again." He smiled faintly. "You're direct. I like that." "I'm busy, so skip the charm and give me a real answer." Daniel studied her for a long moment, his expression shifting into something more serious. "You're Marcus Whitfield's sister." Clara's chest tightened. "How do you—" "He talked about you." "A lot." Daniel's voice softened. "Said you were the toughest person he knew. Said if anything ever happened to him, you'd be the one to finish what he started." "He's dead." "I know." "Then what are you doing here?" Daniel glanced toward the door, then back at her. "Same thing he was. Trying to stop something bad before it gets worse." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give you right now." Clara leaned forward, her voice dropping. "You show up bleeding out, you say my brother's name like it's a password, and now you're telling me you're here to stop something. That's not enough. It has to be. Why? Because the people who put this bullet in me are still out there. And if they find out I'm alive, they'll come for me, which means they'll come here." Clara sat back, processing. Daniel wasn't lying. She could see it in his eyes, the same look her brother used to get when he was trying to protect her from the truth. "Then we need to move you," she said. "No, we need to keep me off the radar." "You're in a hospital. You're already on the radar." "Not if you keep me listed as unidentified." Clara shook her head. "That won't hold. Whitmore already flagged your chart. Someone's going to start asking questions." "Then make sure they ask you first." Before Clara could respond, the door to the recovery bay swung open. A woman in a dark suit stepped inside, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. Behind her, 2 men in matching suits flanked the doorway. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice polite but firm. "We're looking for the patient brought in earlier tonight. Gunshot wound, unidentified male." Clara stood slowly, positioning herself between the woman and Daniel's bed. "Visiting hours are over," Clara said evenly. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We're not visitors. We're federal agents. We need to speak with him." "Then you can come back with a warrant." The woman's smile faded. "This is a matter of national security. And this is a hospital. You don't get access to my patient without proper clearance." The woman stepped closer, her voice dropping. "I don't think you understand the situation." "I understand it fine," Clara said, her tone ice cold. "You're not getting near him." For a moment, the room was silent. Then the woman nodded slowly, stepping back. "We'll be in touch," she said. She turned and left, the 2 men following. Clara waited until the door clicked shut before turning back to Daniel. His eyes were wide, his breath coming faster. "They're not feds," he said quietly. "I know." "How?" "Because feds don't smile like that." Daniel let out a shaky breath. You just made a very dangerous enemy. Yeah, Clara said, pulling her phone from her pocket. I'm good at that. She dialed a number she hadn't called in 3 years. It rang twice before a voice answered. Captain Reyes? It's Clara Whitfield. I need an extraction team at Metro General, now. There was a pause. Whitfield, I thought you were out. I was. I'm not anymore. What's the situation? Hostile contact, 1 asset in critical condition, 0 margin for error. Another pause. I'll have a team there in 20. Can you hold until then? Clara glanced at Daniel, then at the door. I'll hold. She hung up and pocketed the phone. Daniel was staring at her, eyes wide. Who the hell are you? He asked. Clara pulled a chair closer to the door, positioning herself where she could see anyone coming down the hall. Someone who's tired of being underestimated, she said, and then she sat down and waited. What? The next 18 minutes felt like 18 hours. Clara kept her eyes on the hallway, tracking every movement. Nurses walking past, an orderly pushing a meal cart, a doctor checking charts. Nothing unusual. But Clara's instincts were screaming. Daniel was quiet, his breathing steady now, but his eyes never left her. You were military, he said finally. Was. Combat medic? Something like that. Something like that doesn't get you a direct line to Captain Reyes. Clara didn't answer. Daniel shifted slightly, wincing. Marcus said you were spec ops. Said you did things most people don't even know exist. Marcus talked too much. He was proud of you. Clara's jaw tightened. He's still dead. Yeah, and the people who killed him are the same ones who put a bullet in me. Clara's head snapped toward him. What? The operation Marcus was running when he died. It wasn't finished. I picked up where he left off, and now they're trying to bury it. Who's they? People with enough power to make problems disappear. People who don't like loose ends. And you're a loose end. We both are now. Clara stood, her pulse quickening. You should have led with that. Would you have believed me? Probably not. Daniel smiled faintly. That's why I didn't. Before Clara could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Outside. 2 vehicles. Not ours. Clara's blood went cold. She moved to the window and glanced out into the parking lot. 2 black SUVs parked near the ambulance bay. Engines running, windows tinted. They're here, she said quietly. Daniel tried to sit up, but Clara pushed him back down. Stay put. I'll handle it. You can't handle 4 armed operatives alone. Watch me. Clara stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door shut behind her. The floor was quiet. Too quiet. She moved quickly, checking each room as she passed. Most were empty. A few had patients, but they were asleep. And then she saw them. 2 men in scrubs walking toward Daniel's room, but they weren't staff. Clara could tell from the way they moved, too rigid, too controlled, and the bulge under the left armpit of the taller one. She stepped into their path, clipboard in hand. Can I help you? She asked, voice bright and professional. The taller man smiled. Just checking on a patient. Which one? The gunshot victim. Unidentified male. He's been transferred. The man's smile faltered. Transferred where? ICU. Critical condition. No visitors. The man glanced at his partner, then back at Clara. We'll need to verify that. Feel free. Check with the charge nurse at the main desk. The man stepped closer, his voice dropping. Or you could just tell us which room he's in. Clara met his eyes, her expression calm. No. For a moment, neither man moved. Then the taller one reached for something under his scrubs. Clara moved first. She drove the clipboard into his wrist, hard and fast, knocking his hand away from the weapon. Then she pivoted, slamming her elbow into the second man's throat. He staggered back, choking. The taller man recovered quickly, lunging toward her, but Clara sidestepped and swept his legs out from under him. He hit the floor hard. Clara was already moving, sprinting back toward Daniel's room. She burst through the door, locking it behind her. Daniel was sitting up now, eyes wide. What? We're leaving. Now! Clara grabbed a wheelchair from the corner and pulled it next to the bed. I can't walk, Daniel said. You don't have to. She helped him into the chair, moving fast but careful not to jostle the IV still attached to his arm. Then she unlocked the door and pushed him out into the hallway. The two men were gone. But Clara knew they'd be back. She moved quickly, navigating through the back corridors of the hospital, avoiding the main elevators. Her phone buzzed again. Extraction team en route. ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes? Clara pushed the wheelchair faster. They reached the service elevator and Clara hit the button, glancing over her shoulder. The hallway was still empty. The elevator doors opened. Clara pushed Daniel inside and hit the button for the ground floor. The doors slid shut. For a moment, there was silence. Then the elevator jolted to a stop. The lights flickered. Clara's heart slammed against her ribs. Someone had cut the power. Daniel looked up at her, his face pale. "They're in the building." Clara didn't answer. She was already prying open the emergency panel, fingers moving fast. The elevator wasn't stuck between floors. It was one level above the ground floor. Close enough? Clara forced the doors open manually, just enough to slip through. She pulled Daniel out of the wheelchair and helped him down onto the concrete floor of the shaft. "Can you climb?" she asked. "Do I have a choice?" "No." They moved together, Clara supporting most of his weight as they descended the maintenance ladder. Her arms burned, her lungs screamed. But she didn't stop. They reached the ground floor and Clara forced the doors open from the inside. They stumbled out into a dimly lit service corridor, and then she heard it. Footsteps. Running. Clara pulled Daniel behind a storage rack, pressing a finger to her lips. The footsteps grew closer, and then they stopped. Right outside the corridor. Clara held her breath. A voice crackled over a radio. "Target not located. Expanding search perimeter." The footsteps moved away. Clara exhaled slowly. Her phone buzzed. Outside. Northeast exit. Go now. Clara helped Daniel to his feet and they moved together, fast and quiet, toward the exit. The door swung open. Outside, a black van was waiting, engine running. Captain Reyes stood next to it, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Get in," he said. Clara didn't hesitate. She helped Daniel into the van, then climbed in after him. The door slammed shut. The van pulled away. Clara leaned back against the wall, chest heaving, adrenaline still flooding her system. Reyes looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You've got a lot of explaining to do, Whitfield." "I know. Starting with why a combat medic who's been off the grid for 3 years just called in an extraction like she never left." Clara met his eyes. "Because the grid just found me." The van's interior smelled like gunpowder and diesel fuel. Clara kept her hand on Daniel's wrist, monitoring his pulse while the city blurred past the tinted windows. Reyes sat across from them, arms still crossed, studying her like she was a puzzle he'd forgotten how to solve. 3 years, he said finally. Not a word. Not a check-in. Nothing. Clara didn't look at him. "I was done." "You don't get to be done. Not after what you saw. What you did. Watch me." Reyes leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You vanished 2 weeks after Marcus died, dropped off every grid we have. We looked for you, Clara. Hard. Maybe I didn't want to be found. And now?" Clara finally met his eyes. "Now I don't have a choice." Daniel coughed, a wet sound that made Clara's jaw tighten. She checked the IV bag hanging from a hook on the van's ceiling. Still half full. Enough to keep him stable until they reached wherever Reyes was taking them. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house, 2 miles out." Reyes glanced at Daniel. "He gonna make it?" "If he doesn't bleed out in the next 10 minutes, yeah." "Good, because I need him talking." "He needs surgery." "He needs to tell me who tried to kill him first." Clara's hand moved to the tactical knife strapped to her ankle. Old habit, muscle memory from a life she'd tried to bury. "You push him too hard, you'll lose him." Reyes noticed the movement. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Recognition. "You really haven't changed. Neither have you." The van took a sharp turn, and Daniel grunted, his hand gripping the edge of the bench seat. Clara steadied him, her fingers pressing against his ribs to keep pressure on the wound. "How long have you been at Metro General?" Reyes asked. 2 years. "Doing what? Emptying bedpans?" "Saving lives." "You were saving lives before. Bigger ones." Clara's voice went flat. "Those lives didn't stay saved." Reyes sat back, watching her. "Marcus wouldn't want you wasting yourself in some ER. Marcus is dead. He doesn't get a vote." The van went quiet, except for the hum of the engine and Daniel's labored breathing. Clara felt the weight of Reyes's stare, but refused to give him the satisfaction of looking up. Finally, he spoke again. The people who came for him tonight, they're not local, not gang-affiliated. These are contractors. I know. How? The way they moved, the way they talked, the way they didn't panic when I put two of them on the floor. Reyes almost smiled. You still got it. I never wanted it. The van slowed, then stopped. The driver, a young operator Clara didn't recognize, turned in his seat. We're here, Captain. Reyes stood, unlocking the rear doors. Let's move. Clara helped Daniel out of the van and into a nondescript building that looked like every other warehouse in the industrial district. Inside, it was anything but ordinary. Surveillance monitors lined one wall, weapons racks lined another, and a medical station sat in the corner, fully stocked, military grade. Get him on the table, Reyes said. Clara guided Daniel onto the exam table, already scanning the supplies. Suture kits, hemostatic agents, antibiotics, everything she needed. Reyes positioned himself near the monitors, arms crossed again. Talk to me, Cross. Who wants you dead? Daniel's eyes were half closed, pain etched across his face. Long list. Narrow it down. Can't. Not until I know who got to the files. Claire's hands paused mid-reach for the suture kit. What files? Daniel looked at her, then at Reyes. The ones Marcus died protecting. The room went still. Claire's voice came out quieter than she intended. What are you talking about? Reyes stepped closer. Cross, if you're saying what I think you're saying... Marcus didn't die in a training accident, Daniel said, his voice raw. He was executed because he found out someone on the inside was selling classified intel to foreign assets. He compiled evidence, names, transactions, communication logs, everything. Claire's hands were shaking now. She forced them still, gripping the edge of the table. That's not what I was told. That's because the people who killed him wrote the report. Who? I don't know. That's the problem. Marcus kept the files compartmentalized. He only told two people where they were hidden. Me and... Daniel's eyes locked on Clara. And you. Clara stepped back like she'd been hit. I don't know anything about files. He sent you a letter 2 weeks before he died. That letter didn't say anything about... It wasn't supposed to. He coded it in case it got intercepted. Clara's mind raced, pulling up fragments of memory. The letter had been short, almost impersonal. She'd read it a dozen times, searching for hidden meaning, for some last piece of her brother she could hold on to. If anything happens to me, find Daniel Cross. He'll know what to do. She'd thought it was just Marcus being paranoid. He'd always been like that, seeing threats in shadows, planning 3 moves ahead. I burned it, Clara said quietly. Daniel closed his eyes. Of course you did. Reyes swore under his breath. So the files are gone. No, Daniel said. Marcus had a backup, but I can't get to it without the access code, and the only person who knew it was him. Clara's chest felt tight. Then we're done. Whatever he was protecting is gone. Not if you remember. Remember what? Something he told you, something only you would know. Clara turned away, running her hands through her hair. This is insane. I don't... Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, glancing at the screen. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she saw the message. Stop looking or the nurse dies next. Claire's blood turned to ice. She held up the phone so Reyes could see. His expression hardened. They're tracking you. How? I dumped my personal phone before we left the hospital. Doesn't matter. They know you're involved now. Reyes pulled a tablet from the desk and started typing. We need to move you both, now. Where? Somewhere they won't think to look. Clara's mind was spinning. If they're tracking me, they know I left with Daniel, which means they know he's alive, which means they'll escalate, Reyes finished. They'll stop playing subtle and start burning everything to the ground. Daniel tried to sit up, wincing. They'll go after the hospital. Why? Clara asked. Clara. Because that's where the trail started. They'll want to erase every record of me being there, every witness, every piece of evidence. Clara's stomach dropped. There are innocent people there. They don't care. Reyes was already on his phone barking orders. I need a containment team at Metro General, full lockdown. No one in or out without clearance. He paused, listening. I don't care if it raises questions. Do it. He hung up and looked at Clara. Your coworkers are about to have a very confusing night. Clara thought about the ER, about the residents who barely acknowledged her, the attending physicians who treated her like furniture, the patients who never knew her name, and then she thought about Dr. Whitmore. Whitmore, she said suddenly. Reyes frowned. Who? The attending who refused to treat Daniel. He flagged the chart. He's the one who would have reported it to administration. So if they're erasing the trail, he's a loose end. Reyes and Clara locked eyes. He's in danger, Clara said. He's also the reason you almost lost your patient, Reyes pointed out. You sure you want to save him? Clara grabbed her jacket from the back of a chair. I don't get to pick who deserves help. Clara, he's a terrible doctor and a worse human being, but he's still a human being. Reyes stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. You're going to get yourself killed one of these days. Not today. Reyes turned to the driver. Get her back to Metro General, fast. Sir, the containment team won't get there in time. Move. Clara was already heading for the door. She glanced back at Daniel. Don't die while I'm gone. Daniel managed a weak smile. Do my best. The van ride back felt twice as long. Clara checked her phone obsessively, waiting for another message. Nothing came. The driver, a kid who looked barely old enough to shave, kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. You really used to run ops? He asked. Used to? Why'd you stop? Clara didn't answer. They pulled up to the hospital's rear entrance. Clara could see security lights flashing, but the building looked calm. No visible threat. Too calm. She jumped out before the van fully stopped. Circle around. If I'm not out in 10 minutes, call Reyes. What do I tell him? That I was right. Clara moved through the service entrance, her hospital ID still clipped to her scrubs. The security guard at the desk didn't even look up. Inside, the hallways were eerily quiet. Night shift skeleton crew. Minimal staff. Perfect conditions for someone who didn't want witnesses. Clara took the stairs 2 at a time, heading for the administrative wing. Whitmore's office was on the 3rd floor. She'd only been there once, to receive a written warning for insubordination after she'd corrected his dosage calculation in front of a resident. She reached the 3rd floor and slowed, listening. Voices. Coming from down the hall. Clara pressed herself against the wall, edging closer. 2 men. Not hospital staff. Don't care what he knows. The order is clean sweep. What about the girl? She's already flagged. Team 2 will handle her. Clara's pulse spiked. She reached for her phone, typing a quick message to Reyes. Multiple hostiles, admin wing, send backup. She hit send just as one of the men stepped into the hallway. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of blank expression that came from doing terrible things for money. His eyes locked on Clara. For half a second, neither of them moved. Then Clara turned and ran. She heard him shout, heard footsteps pounding behind her, but she didn't look back. She just ran, her mind calculating distances and angles on autopilot. The stairwell was 20 feet ahead. 15. 10. She hit the door at full speed, slamming it open and taking the stairs down 3 at a time. Behind her, the door crashed open again. Clara didn't slow down. She hit the 2nd floor landing and kept going, her lungs burning, her legs screaming. She burst out into the main hallway and nearly collided with a nurse pushing a medication cart. Call security, Clara shouted. Armed intruders, 3rd floor. The nurse stared at her, frozen. Clara didn't wait. She kept moving, cutting through the ER, her eyes scanning for Whitmore. He wasn't in the trauma bay, not at the nurse's station. She checked his usual spots. Radiology, the doctor's lounge, the coffee station. Nothing. And then she heard it. A muffled shout, coming from one of the private consultation rooms. Clara moved toward it, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon she didn't have. She grabbed a heavy flashlight from the supply cart instead. Not ideal, but it would work. She pushed open the door. Whitmore was inside, backed against the wall, his hands raised. In front of him stood another man in dark clothing, a gun pointed at Whitmore's chest. Please, Whitmore was saying, his voice shaking. I don't know anything, I just... The gunman's fingers started to squeeze the trigger. Clara didn't think. She swung the flashlight as hard as she could, connecting with the gunman's wrist. The gun fired, the bullet punching into the ceiling. And then Clara was moving, driving her knee into his stomach, using his momentum to slam him into the wall. He dropped the gun. Clara kicked it across the room and brought the flashlight down on the back of his head. He crumpled. Whitmore stared at her, his face pale, his breathing ragged. What? Shut up and move. Clara grabbed his arm and dragged him out of the room, her eyes scanning the hallway. Clear. For now. She pulled Whitmore into a supply closet and locked the door. Stay here. Don't make a sound. Who were those people? Whitmore demanded, his voice climbing toward panic. Why did they... Because you flagged a patient you shouldn't have. Because you asked questions. Because you're a loose end. I don't understand. You don't need to. You just need to stay alive. Whitmore's eyes were wide, terrified. For the first time since Clara had started working at Metro General, he looked at her like she was an actual person. You just saved my life, he said quietly. Don't get used to it. Clara's phone buzzed, a text from Reyes. Containment team ETA 3 minutes. Get out. Clara unlocked the closet door. Security's coming. Stay put until they clear the building. Where are you going? To finish this. She left him there and moved back into the hallway, her heart pounding, adrenaline sharpening every sense. The hospital was waking up now, alarms blaring, security rushing through the corridors, voices shouting over radios. Clara moved against the flow, heading back toward the admin wing. She had to know if they'd gotten what they came for. She reached Whitmore's office and pushed the door open. The room had been torn apart. Drawers pulled out, files scattered across the floor, the computer monitor shattered. But in the corner, partially hidden under a stack of papers, Clara saw something. A folder. She picked it up, flipping it open. Inside were copies of Daniel's admission records, labs, imaging, treatment notes. And at the bottom, a handwritten note. Patient claims connection to Operation Crossfire. Recommend immediate federal notification. Clara's hands went numb. Whitmore had reported it. He'd sent the information up the chain, which meant whoever was hunting Daniel had gotten the intel directly from the hospital, and Clara had just saved the man who'd sold him out. She stood there, folder in hand, staring at Whitmore's handwriting. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Clara turned slowly. A woman stood in the doorway. Same dark clothing as the others, but her face was calm, almost pleasant. Clara Whitfield, the woman said, her voice soft. We've been looking for you. Clara's grip tightened on the folder. Congratulations. The woman smiled. You've made this very complicated. That's my specialty. We can make this simple. Give us Cross. Walk away. Live your quiet little life. Or we bury you along with everyone else who's seen too much. Clara took a slow breath, calculating. The woman was armed. She could see the outline of a holster under her jacket, but she hadn't drawn yet. That meant she wanted Clara alive, which meant Clara still had leverage. I don't know where Cross is, Clara said. Yes, you do. Even if I did, what makes you think I'd tell you? The woman stepped closer, her smile fading. Because if you don't, we'll start with your coworkers, then your neighbors, then anyone who's ever said hello to you in a coffee shop. We'll make you watch, and then we'll make you wish you'd cooperated. Clara's jaw tightened. You're going to a lot of trouble for one man. He has something that doesn't belong to him. The files. The woman's expression flickered, just for a second, but Clara caught it. Confirmation. Where are they? The woman asked. I don't know. Wrong answer. The woman reached for her weapon. Clara moved first, hurling the folder at the woman's face. Papers exploded into the air, blocking her line of sight for half a second. Clara closed the distance, grabbing the woman's wrist before she could draw, twisting hard. The woman was good, better than the men downstairs. She pivoted, using Clara's momentum against her, driving an elbow toward Clara's ribs. Clara blocked it, barely, and drove her knee up. The woman dodged, stepping back, resetting. They circled each other in the small office, both breathing hard. You were military, the woman said. Spec ops. Nurse, Clara corrected, not just a nurse. Not anymore. The woman smiled again. That's where you're wrong. You never stop being what you were trained to be. You just pretend. Clara didn't respond. The woman lunged. Clara sidestepped, driving her fist into the woman's kidney. The woman grunted but didn't go down. She spun, sweeping Clara's legs out from under her. Clara hit the floor hard, rolling immediately to avoid the follow-up strike. She came up in a crouch, breathing ragged. The woman had her gun out now, aimed at Clara's chest. "Last chance," the woman said. Clara raised her hand slowly, and then the window behind the woman exploded. Glass shattered inward as a canister tumbled through, hitting the floor and releasing a thick cloud of smoke. The woman turned, disoriented. Clara lunged, tackling her to the ground, her hands closing around the woman's wrist, slamming it against the floor until the gun clattered away. Voices shouted in the hallway, footsteps pounding. The smoke thickened. Clara drove her elbow into the woman's face, once, twice, until she went limp. Then Clara staggered to her feet, coughing, her eyes burning. A figure appeared in the smoke. Reyes. "You're late," Clara rasped. "You're welcome." He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. "Move. Building's compromised." They ran together, cutting through the smoke-filled hallways, past security teams and SWAT operators flooding in. Outside, the night air hit Clara's lungs like a slap. She doubled over, coughing, her whole body shaking. Reyes kept a hand on her shoulder. "You good?" Clara nodded, still coughing. "Whitmore?" "Supply closet, second floor." Reyes barked orders into his radio, coordinating the search. Clara straightened, wiping her eyes. They were here for the records, but they were also here for something else. What? Leverage. They wanted me to give up Daniel, which means they don't know where he is, which means we still have time. Reyes studied her. Time for what? To figure out what Marcus was hiding and why it's worth killing for. Reyes's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then his face went hard. "What?" Claire asked. He lowered the phone. "We've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where Daniel just flatlined." Clara's world tilted. She was already running before Reyes finished speaking, sprinting toward the van, her heart slamming against her ribs. They pulled away from the hospital, sirens wailing behind them, and Clara's hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the seat to keep them still. Daniel couldn't die. Not before she got answers, not before she understood what Marcus had died for. The van screeched to a stop outside the safe house. Clara threw the door open and ran inside. The medical station was surrounded by operatives, someone doing chest compressions, someone else checking vitals. Clara shoved her way through. "Move." They stepped back. Daniel was on the table, his skin gray, his chest still. Clara checked his pulse. Nothing. She started compressions, fast and hard, counting in her head. "Come on," she muttered. "Don't you dare." 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Again. Again. "Clara," Reyes started. "Shut up." She kept going, her arms burning, sweat dripping down her face. And then Daniel gasped. His eyes flew open, his chest heaving. Clara stepped back, her legs nearly giving out. Daniel stared at the ceiling, blinking, confused. "What?" "You died," Clara said flatly. "Don't do it again." Daniel turned his head, looking at her. His lips moved, barely a whisper. Clara leaned closer. "What?" "Locker 237, Union Station." His eyes closed again, but this time his chest kept moving. Clara straightened, turning to Reyes. "Union Station, Locker 237. Reyes frowned. "That's where the files are?" "That's where we start." One of the operatives stepped forward. "Ma'am, Union Station is a public space. High traffic. If they're monitoring that..." "They are," Clara said, "which is why we're going now, before they figure out Daniel's still alive." Reyes shook his head. "This is a bad idea." "You have a better one?" He didn't. Clara grabbed her jacket. "Then let's go." They left 2 operatives with Daniel and took a smaller vehicle this time, less conspicuous, easier to maneuver. Clara sat in the passenger seat, watching the city slide past. Union Station was 15 minutes away. 15 minutes to figure out what her brother had died protecting. 15 minutes before everything either made sense or fell apart completely. Reyes glanced at her. "You okay?" "No." "Fair enough." They drove in silence for a while. Then Clara spoke. "The woman at the hospital, she knew things. About me. About my background." "They've done their homework." It's more than that, she knew details. Things that aren't in any file. Reyes's hands tightened on the wheel. What are you saying? I'm saying someone on our side is feeding them information. That's a serious accusation. It's the only thing that makes sense. Reyes didn't argue. They pulled into Union Station's parking garage, taking a spot near the back. Inside, the station was busy despite the late hour. Travelers dragging suitcases, couples saying goodbye, a homeless man asleep on a bench. Clara scanned the crowd looking for anything out of place. Nothing stood out. Yet. They found the lockers on the lower level, rows of metal doors stretching along the wall. 237 was in the middle. Clara pulled out the key Daniel had somehow slipped into her pocket during the chaos. She hadn't even noticed until they were in the van. She slid the key into the lock. It turned. The door swung open. Inside was a small duffel bag. Clara pulled it out, unzipping it carefully. Inside, 3 USB drives, a burner phone, and a folded piece of paper. Clara unfolded the paper. It was a list of names, government officials, military brass, private contractors. Next to each name, a series of numbers and dates. Transactions, Reyes said quietly, reading over her shoulder. Clara's eyes moved down the list, and then stopped. At the bottom, in her brother's handwriting, "If you're reading this, I'm already dead. Trust no one, not even Reyes." Clara's blood turned to ice. She looked up slowly. Reyes was staring at the paper, his face unreadable. "Clara," he started. She stepped back, her hand moving to the knife at her ankle. "Don't," she said quietly. Reyes raised his hands. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Marcus was paranoid. He didn't trust anyone toward the end. Why? Because he knew someone close to him had been compromised. He just didn't know who. Clara's mind raced. "And you didn't think to mention that?" "I didn't know until after he died. By then you were gone." "Convenient." "Clara, listen to me." A gunshot cracked through the station. People screamed. Clara spun, scanning for the shooter. There, second level, near the escalators. Another shot. The bullet hit the locker next to Clara's head. "Run!" Reyes shouted. Clara grabbed the duffel bag and bolted, weaving through the panicking crowd. More shots. She didn't look back. She hit the stairs and took them 2 at a time, her lungs burning. Behind her, she could hear Reyes shouting, returning fire. She burst out onto the main level and kept running, cutting through the crowd toward the exit. A hand grabbed her arm. Clara spun, knife already in her hand. Dr. Whitmore stared back at her, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" Clara demanded. "They told me to find you," Whitmore said, his voice shaking. "They said if I didn't—" He didn't finish. His body jerked once. Blood bloomed across his chest. He fell. Clara caught him, lowering him to the ground. His eyes were already glazing over. "I'm sorry," he whispered. And then he was gone. Clara looked up. Across the station, through the chaos, a figure stood watching her, the woman from the hospital. She smiled and raised her gun. Clara dove behind a concrete pillar as the first shot punched into the tile where she'd been standing. Whitmore's body lay in a spreading pool of blood 5 feet away, his eyes staring at nothing. She didn't have time to feel anything about it. The woman was moving now, cutting through the screaming crowd with surgical precision, her weapon tracking Clara's last position. Clara's fingers closed around the duffel bag strap. She couldn't leave it. Whatever was inside had gotten Marcus killed, had put a bullet in Daniel, had just ended Whitmore's life in the middle of a train station. She ran, not toward the exits, they'd be covered, not toward Reyes. She didn't know if she could trust him anymore. She went down, hitting the lower platform access stairs at full speed, her boots hammering concrete. Behind her, more gunfire. Screams. The metallic screech of a train pulling into the station. Clara hit the platform as the train doors opened. She shoved through the crowd of passengers trying to exit, ignoring their curses, and threw herself into the car just as the doors started closing. The woman appeared at the platform entrance. Their eyes met through the window. The doors sealed shut. The train lurched forward. Clara pressed herself against the wall, chest heaving, her hands shaking so badly she had to grip the duffel bag with both arms to keep it steady. Around her, passengers stared. Some concerned, most just annoyed at the disruption. A mother pulled her child closer. An old man muttered something about kids these days. Clara forced herself to breathe. Slow, controlled. She had maybe 3 minutes before the next stop, 3 minutes to figure out her next move. Her phone buzzed. Reyes. She almost didn't answer. Then she hit accept, keeping her voice low. Where are you? 2 cars behind you. Don't get off at the next stop. They'll be waiting. How do you know? Because that's what I do. Clara looked toward the rear of the train, but the cars were packed. She couldn't see him. Marcus said not to trust you. Marcus said a lot of things when he was scared. Was he wrong? Silence on the line. Then, I've got 3 operators dead because I pulled them off protective detail to help you tonight. If I wanted you gone, you'd already be in a bag. Clara's jaw clenched. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. Next stop is Riverside. After that, the line splits. You go north, I'll draw them south. And then what? Then you disappear. Take the files somewhere safe. Figure out what Marcus found, and don't surface until you know who to trust. I don't trust anyone. Smart girl. The line went dead. Clara shoved the phone in her pocket and moved toward the center of the car, keeping her back to the wall. Through the windows, the city slid past in streaks of light and shadow. The train began to slow. Riverside Station. Clara watched the platform come into view. Sparse crowd, late-night commuters mostly. A couple of transit cops near the far end, and 2 men in dark jackets positioned near the exits. Not cops. Clara stayed on the train. The doors opened. A handful of passengers shuffled off. New ones got on. Clara scanned faces, looking for threats, and then she saw him. Reyes, 3 cars back, moving through the crowd toward the rear exit, drawing attention. The 2 men on the platform noticed him, started moving. The doors chimed. Clara stepped off at the last second, slipping into the thin crowd and keeping her head down. Behind her, she heard shouts. She didn't look back. She moved quickly through the station, taking the west exit, emerging into a residential neighborhood she didn't recognize. Row houses, chain-link fences, cars parked bumper to bumper along narrow streets. Clara kept walking, her mind racing. She needed somewhere secure, somewhere off the grid, somewhere she could open the files without worrying about who might be tracking her. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Yeah, Clara Whitfield. The voice was male, calm, professional. We should talk. Who is this? Someone who knew your brother. Someone who wants the same thing you do. And what's that? Justice. Clara stopped walking. You'll have to be more specific. The files Marcus compiled, they implicate some very dangerous people. People who will burn the world down to keep their secrets buried. But they also contain the evidence needed to stop them. Why should I believe you? Because if I wanted those files, you'd already be dead. I'm offering you a choice. Work with me, and we end this. Or run, and watch everyone you care about become collateral damage. Clara's grip tightened on the phone. I don't care about anyone. You cared enough to pull Daniel Cross out of a hospital. You cared enough to save a doctor who treated you like dirt. You care, Clara. That's your weakness and your strength. Where do you want to meet? Pier 57, 1 hour. Come alone. And if I don't? Then Daniel dies, Reyes dies, and everyone at Metro General who ever saw Daniel's face gets a visit from people like the woman at Union Station. The line went dead. Clara stood in the middle of the sidewalk, her pulse pounding in her ears. She could run, take the files, disappear, let someone else clean up the mess. But that wasn't who she was, no matter how hard she'd tried to bury it. She started walking again, heading east toward the waterfront. Pier 57 was 20 minutes on foot. She had time to think, time to plan, time to decide if she was willing to die for answers. The duffel bag felt heavier with every step. She found a 24-hour diner 3 blocks from the pier and slipped into the bathroom, locked the door, set the bag on the sink. She pulled out one of the USB drives and plugged it into her phone using an adapter she'd grabbed from the safe house. The drive was encrypted. Of course it was. Clara stared at the password prompt, her mind working through possibilities. Marcus had been careful, paranoid. He wouldn't use something obvious. She tried his birthday. Wrong. His military ID number. Wrong. The date he enlisted. Wrong. Clara closed her eyes, thinking back. Marcus used to tease her about her terrible memory for dates. But she remembered other things. Conversations. Moments that mattered. Like the night before he deployed for the first time. They'd been sitting on the porch of their childhood home, watching the sun go down, and he'd told her that if anything ever happened to him, she should remember one thing. You're braver than you think you are. She opened her eyes. Typed, braver than you think. The drive unlocked. Files flooded the screen. Hundreds of them. Documents, photos, audio recordings. Clara scrolled through, her stomach sinking with every page. Transaction records showing wire transfers from foreign shell companies to accounts held by high-ranking military officials. Photos of classified documents being handed over in parking garages and hotel rooms. Audio of conversations where targets were discussed like budget line items. And names. So many names. Clara recognized some of them. Generals she'd seen on the news. Politicians who'd built careers on national security platforms. Defense contractors who'd made billions off wars that never seemed to end. Her brother had documented everything, and it had gotten him killed. Clara's hands were shaking again. She pulled out the burner phone from the duffel and powered it on. One message waited. From Marcus. Sent the day he died. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything. I'm sorry I put this on you, but you're the only person I trust. The only person who won't stop until it's finished. The files are the key. Get them to Matheson. He'll know what to do. I love you, Clara. Be brave. Clara read it 3 times. Matheson. She didn't know anyone named Matheson. She pocketed the phone and the USB drive, zipped up the duffel, and left the bathroom. Outside, the night air was cold and damp, smelling like salt and rotting fish. The pier was a 10-minute walk now. Clara moved through the shadows, keeping to alleys and side streets. Pier 57 came into view, an old industrial dock that had been partially converted into artist studios and overpriced lofts. Most of the lights were off. The water lapped against the pilings with a steady, hollow rhythm. Clara approached slowly, scanning for movement. Nothing. She stepped onto the pier, her boots echoing on the weathered wood. Clara Whitfield. She spun. A man stood at the far end of the pier, silhouetted against the city lights across the water. He was tall, older, with the kind of posture that screamed military even in civilian clothes. You're early, he said. Who are you? Colonel James Matheson, retired. I worked with your brother. Clara's hand moved to her knife. Marcus mentioned you. Then you know I'm here to help. I don't know anything, except that everyone who gets close to these files ends up dead. Matheson stepped closer, his hands visible, empty. Your brother trusted me with his life multiple times. I owe him a debt. Then help me understand. What was Operation Crossfire? Matheson's jaw tightened. A task force designed to root out corruption within the military-industrial complex. Marcus was the lead investigator. He found things that went higher and deeper than anyone expected. Who killed him? We don't know. Not for certain. The people implicated in those files have resources we can't match. Private armies, political cover. They've spent decades building a network designed to protect itself. Then what's the point? If they're untouchable, they're not untouchable. They're just well protected. But protection requires coordination, and coordination requires communication. Your brother found the weak points? The people who know where the bodies are buried, literal and figurative. Clara pulled out the USB drive. This? Matheson's eyes locked on it. That's one of 3, correct? How did you know? Because Marcus told me. Before he died, he said he'd compartmentalize the evidence. One drive contains the financial records, one contains the communications, one contains the operational files, names, dates, targets. Why split them? Insurance. If one drive gets compromised, the others remain secure. But together, they're enough to bring down everyone involved. Clara held up the drive. This is financial. Then we need the other 2. They're in a safe place. Where? Clara didn't answer. Matheson sighed. You don't trust me. I don't blame you. But we're running out of time. The people hunting you know you have the files. They'll escalate. They'll stop being surgical and start being scorched earth. Let them come. It's not just you at risk. It's everyone you've come into contact with. Everyone who might know something. They'll erase entire networks to keep this quiet. Clara's mind flashed to the hospital. To Daniel, bleeding out on a gurney. To Whitmore, dying in her arms. To Reyes, who might be dead right now because he'd helped her. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Give me the drives. Let me take them to people who can act on them. Prosecutors, journalists, people with the reach to make this public before they can bury it." "And then what?" "Then you disappear. New identity, new life. We protect you." Clara laughed, bitter and sharp. "I've heard that before. This is different." "How?" "Because this time you'll have leverage. Once the files go public, killing you becomes pointless. You're no longer a threat, just a witness." Clara studied him, weighing every word, every micro-expression. He believed what he was saying, but that didn't mean it was true. "I need a guarantee," she said. "What kind?" "Daniel Cross. He gets full protection, medical care, new identity, everything." "Done." "Reyes, same deal." Matheson hesitated. "Reyes is complicated." "Why?" "Because we're not sure which side he's on." Clara's stomach dropped. "Explain." "There's evidence that someone inside the task force was feeding information to the targets. We've narrowed it down to 3 people. Reyes is one of them." "Who are the other 2? "Dead. Killed in the same explosion that was supposed to take out your brother." Clara felt the world tilt. "You think Reyes set Marcus up?" "I think it's possible, which is why I can't promise him protection." Clara's mind raced. Reyes had been there tonight, had helped her escape, had pulled resources to keep her alive, but he'd also been evasive, defensive, and Marcus had told her not to trust him. "I need proof," Clara said. "The communications drive. It should have the evidence." "Then I guess we both need all 3 drives." Matheson nodded slowly. "Where are the other 2? Clara's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A video message. From an unknown sender. She opened it. The video showed Daniel tied to a chair in a concrete room. His face was bruised, blood dripping from his nose. A voice off camera spoke. "You have 1 hour to deliver all 3 drives to the coordinates we're sending, or we start removing pieces of him." The video cut to black. A text appeared with GPS coordinates. Clara looked up at Matheson. "Change of plans?" His expression hardened. "This is a trap. I know. If you walk into that, you're dead. If I don't, Daniel's dead. And we lose our only witness to what Marcus was investigating. There are other witnesses. Not ones I owe." Matheson stepped closer. "Clara, listen to me. They will kill you both. This isn't heroism, it's suicide." "Then I guess I'm suicidal." "Your brother would want you to live." Clara's voice went cold. "My brother's dead. He doesn't get a vote." She turned and started walking. Matheson called after her. "You can't do this alone." Clara didn't slow down. "Watch me." She reached the street and broke into a run, pulling out her phone to check the coordinates. An abandoned warehouse district, east side, 20 minutes away. She hailed a cab, giving the driver an address 3 blocks from the target location. During the ride, she went through the duffel bag again. 3 USB drives. Burner phone. Marcus's note. And at the bottom, something she'd missed before. A small black case. She opened it. Inside was a syringe and a vial of clear liquid. No label. Clara held it up to the light, examining it. And then she understood. Marcus had left her one last gift. She pocketed the vial and syringe, zipped up the bag, and checked her knife. Still there. The cab dropped her off near a shuttered bodega. Clara paid in cash and started walking, her eyes scanning for surveillance. The warehouse district was a graveyard of industrial America. Rusted structures leaning against each other like drunks. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls. Perfect place for an execution. Clara found the building matching the coordinates. 3 stories, most of the windows gone. A loading dock on the east side. She circled it once, looking for entry points. Front door, too obvious. Loading dock, probably covered. Fire escape on the north side, rusted but climbable. Clara took the fire escape, moving slowly to keep the metal from creaking. She reached a 3rd-floor window and slipped inside. The interior was dark, smelling like mold and old machinery. Clara let her eyes adjust, then moved carefully through the space. Voices below. She crept to the edge of the floor and looked down. Daniel was there. still tied to the chair, his head hanging forward. 3 men stood nearby, armed, professional, and the woman from the hospital. She was on her phone, pacing. I don't care what Matheson told her. She'll come. She's too stubborn not to. Clara's jaw clenched. Matheson. He'd set her up. She should have known. The woman hung up and walked over to Daniel, grabbing his hair and yanking his head back. Wake up! Daniel's eyes opened slowly. He looked half-conscious, barely present. Your friend's late, the woman said. Think she forgot about you? Daniel's lips moved. Clara couldn't hear the words. The woman laughed. Touching, but she's not coming to save you. She's coming to die. And you're going to watch. Clara pulled back from the edge, her mind working through scenarios. 3 armed hostiles, 1 wounded asset, no backup, terrible odds, but not impossible. She moved to the far side of the building, where an old maintenance shaft ran from the 3rd floor to the basement. She opened the access panel and looked down. Dark. Narrow. But climbable. Clara lowered herself in, using the rungs welded to the shaft wall. She descended slowly, her boots finding purchase on each rung. At the bottom, she pushed open the basement access door and stepped out into a corridor. The voices were directly above her now. Clara moved to the stairs and started climbing, her knife in one hand, the syringe in the other. She reached the ground floor and paused at the doorway. Daniel was 10 feet away. The 4 hostiles were spread out, watching the entrances. Clara took a slow breath, then she stepped into the room. Hey! All 4 weapons swung toward her. Clara raised her hands, the duffel bag hanging from one shoulder. I'm here. Let him go. The woman smiled. Drop the bag. Clara set it on the ground. Let him go. Show me the drives first. Clara unzipped the bag slowly, pulling out the 3 USB drives and holding them up. The woman's smile widened. Good girl. Now kick the bag over here. Clara kicked it. The woman caught it with her foot, pulling it closer without taking her eyes off Clara. Now untie him, Clara said. No. We had a deal. We had leverage. Now we have everything we need. The woman raised her weapon. You really thought we'd let either of you walk out of here? Clara's hand tightened on the syringe, still hidden behind her back. Yeah, she said quietly. I did. She threw the knife. Not at the woman, at the overhead light. The blade shattered the bulb, plunging the room into darkness. Clara dropped and rolled, her hands finding the syringe, muscle memory guiding her through the chaos. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes lighting up the space in strobing bursts. Clara moved toward Daniel, staying low. Someone grabbed her ankle. She kicked hard, felt bone crunch, kept moving. Her hands found the chair. Found Daniel. She jammed the syringe into his thigh and pushed the plunger. What? Daniel gasped. Adrenaline. Move. She cut the ropes with a backup blade from her boot. Daniel stumbled to his feet, still weak but functional. Clara pulled him toward the maintenance corridor, gunfire tracking their movement. They hit the corridor and Clara slammed the door shut, wedging a metal rod through the handle. Go! She shouted. They ran together through the basement, Daniel leaning on her, both of them gasping. Behind them, the door exploded inward. Clara didn't look back. They burst out through a ground-level exit into an alley. A vehicle screeched to a stop in front of them. Clara raised her knife. The passenger window rolled down. Reyes. Get in! Clara hesitated for half a second. Then she shoved Daniel into the back seat and climbed in after him. Reyes hit the gas. They tore through this warehouse district, taking corners too fast, running lights. Clara looked back. 2 vehicles behind them. Gaining. They're on us, she said. I know. Reyes took a hard right, cutting through a construction zone, concrete barriers scraping the sides of the vehicle. They emerged onto a main road, traffic light, but present. The pursuit vehicles followed. One pulled alongside. Window down, gun out. Clara grabbed Daniel and pulled him down as bullets punched through the windows. Reyes swerved hard, slamming into the pursuit vehicle, forcing it into a parked car. The second vehicle accelerated, trying to ram them from behind. Reyes hit the brakes. The pursuit vehicle shot past them. Reyes turned down a side street, killed the lights, and pulled into an underground parking garage. He drove to the lowest level and parked behind a support column. Killed the engine. Silence. Clara sat up slowly, glass in her hair, her ears ringing. Daniel was breathing hard beside her, still conscious, still alive. Reyes turned in his seat. You okay? Clara stared at him. Matheson set me up. Reyes's expression didn't change. I know. You know? He contacted me 20 minutes ago, told me where you'd be, said I had one chance to prove I wasn't the mole. And you believed him? No, but I believed you'd walk into a trap anyway. So here we are. Clara's hands were shaking. The drives were empty, Reyes said. I swapped them while you were in the diner bathroom. Clara's brain stuttered. What? Reyes pulled 3 USB drives from his pocket. You think I'd let you walk into a meet with the actual evidence? I've been doing this longer than you. Clara wanted to be angry, but she was too exhausted. She leaned back against the seat, closing her eyes. So what now? Daniel asked, his voice rough. Reyes looked at Clara. Now we end this. For real. Clara opened her eyes. How? We give them what they want, but on our terms. Matheson won't fall for... Not Matheson, Reyes interrupted. The person he works for. Clara sat up. Who? Reyes met her eyes. Senator Victoria Hale, Armed Services Committee, presidential candidate, and the person who ordered your brother's execution. Clara's world narrowed to a single point. Victoria Hale. The name hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Reyes nodded slowly. She's been positioning herself as the national security candidate. Clean record, military background, tough on corruption, perfect cover. For what? For being the biggest arms dealer nobody's ever heard of. She doesn't just take bribes, she orchestrates conflicts, creates demand, then profits from both sides. Daniel coughed, wincing. Marcus figured it out. Traced the money flow back to shell companies she controlled. Found communications proving she'd leaked classified intel to foreign buyers. Clara's hands curled into fists. And Matheson? Her fixer, Reyes said. Former Black Ops. Does the wet work she can't be connected to. So, everything tonight was designed to recover the evidence and eliminate witnesses. You, me, Daniel, anyone who could connect the dots. Clara stared at the USB drives in Reyes's hand. How long have you known? I started putting it together after Marcus died, but I couldn't prove anything. Until tonight, when Matheson reached out. He wouldn't have done that unless he was desperate, which means we're close to something they can't let surface. The drives. The communications drive specifically. That's the one with her voice on it, her actual instructions, not proxies, not middlemen, her. Clara took a shaky breath. We go public, release everything, burn it all down. We can't, Daniel said. Not yet. Why the hell not? Because she has dead man switches everywhere. You expose her, she'll activate them. People will die, hundreds, maybe thousands. Assets in the field, undercover operators, witnesses in protective custody. Clara wanted to scream. So we do nothing. We do it smart, Reyes said. We don't just expose her. We dismantle her entire network first. Cut off her resources, her protection. Make it so when she falls alone. How? Reyes pulled out his phone, scrolling through encrypted files. The financial drive shows she's got accounts in 7 countries. Offshore. Untraceable. But tomorrow morning, she's scheduled to transfer $80 million to finalize a weapons deal with a buyer in Eastern Europe. So we intercept it. Better. We trace it. Follow the money to every account, every asset, every person on her payroll. Then we freeze them all at once. Leave her exposed with no resources to fight back. Clara looked at Daniel. Can you do that? Daniel's eyes were glassy with pain and exhaustion, but his voice was steady. If I had the right access, yeah, but I'd need to be somewhere with serious computing power and medical support because I'm about 30 minutes from passing out. There's a facility, Reyes said, off books, used for cyber warfare ops, full medical bay, hardened against intrusion. I can get us in. How far? 40 minutes, if we're not followed. Clara glanced out the window. The parking garage was silent. No movement, no engines. But that didn't mean they were safe. Let's move, she said. They switched vehicles. Reyes had a backup parked 2 levels up, a nondescript sedan with government plates. Clara helped Daniel into the back seat while Reyes cleared their original vehicle of anything traceable. They drove in silence for the first 10 minutes, taking a route that zigzagged through residential neighborhoods, checking mirrors constantly. Clara's mind wouldn't stop spinning. Victoria Hale, a senator, a presidential candidate, someone who shook hands with world leaders and smiled for cameras while orchestrating death behind closed doors. And Marcus had died trying to stop her. "Did my brother know?" Clara asked quietly. "That it was Hale?" Reyes kept his eyes on the road. He suspected, but he couldn't prove it. That's why he compartmentalized the evidence. He knew if he went public too early, she'd bury him, which she did anyway. The training accident wasn't an accident. Matheson rigged the explosives personally, made it look like equipment failure. By the time anyone questioned it, the investigation was already closed. Clara felt something cold settle in her chest. "And you knew this?" "I suspected. But you didn't tell me." "You were gone. Off the grid. I had no way to reach you without potentially exposing you." "So you just let me think my brother died because of bad luck?" Reyes's jaw tightened. "I let you stay alive. Hale had people watching his funeral, watching you. If they'd seen any indication you were digging, you'd be dead too." Clara wanted to argue, wanted to rage at him for keeping secrets, but he wasn't wrong. She'd spent 3 years hiding, 3 years convincing herself she was done with the fight, and it had kept her breathing. They reached the facility just after midnight. It looked like an abandoned office complex on the outside. Cracked parking lot, faded signage, windows dark. But when Reyes swiped a keycard at the side entrance, the door unlocked with a magnetic hum that suggested serious security underneath. Inside was different. Clean, modern, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Corridor walls lined with reinforced steel. Reyes led them to an elevator that required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. They descended 3 floors. The doors opened onto what looked like a small operations center. Computer terminals lined one wall, medical equipment another, and a conference table sat in the center with screens mounted above it. 2 people were already there. A young woman with close-cropped hair working at one of the terminals, and an older man in surgical scrubs organizing medical supplies. "This is Dr. Navarro," Reyes said, gesturing to the man. "And that's Kira Voss, best cyber warfare analyst we've got." Dr. Navarro moved immediately to Daniel, guiding him to a medical chair and starting an assessment. "Gunshot wound, moderate blood loss, borderline shock. Let's get him stabilized." Clara watched as the doctor worked, her own adrenaline finally starting to ebb. She felt the crash coming, the shakes, the exhaustion, the weight of everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. Kira looked up from her terminal. "Reyes said you've got files. I'll need everything if we're mapping this network." Clara pulled out the USB drives and handed them over. Kira plugged them in, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Encrypted, military grade. Give me 5 minutes." It took 3. The screens above the conference table lit up with data, spreadsheets, communication logs, photos, audio files, everything Marcus had compiled. Kira whistled low. "This is extensive. How long was he gathering this?" 2 years, Daniel said from the medical chair. Dr. Navarro had him on an IV now, cleaning the wound site. He started small, wire transfers that didn't add up. Then he found the shell companies, then the buyers. It spiraled from there. Kira pulled up the financial records. "Okay, transaction scheduled for 0700 tomorrow. 80 million moving from an account in the Caymans to one in Zurich. That's the weapons deal?" "That's the one," Reyes confirmed. "And you want to trace the full network before intercepting?" "We want to dismantle it. Every account, every asset, every person on the payroll." Kira leaned back, studying the data. "That's ambitious. We're talking about financial institutions across multiple jurisdictions. Some of these accounts are in countries that don't cooperate with U.S. requests. Can you do it or not?" Kira smiled. "I didn't say I couldn't. I said it was ambitious. Give me 4 hours and access to some very illegal tools." "You've got 3 hours, and I don't want to know about the tools." Kira spun back to her terminal, already typing. Clara sat down at the conference table, her legs finally giving out. She stared at the screens, at the evidence her brother had died compiling, and felt the full weight of it. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about making sure Marcus's death meant something. Reyes sat across from her. "You okay?" "No?" "Fair." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Clara spoke. "When this is over, when we expose Hale, what happens to us?" Reyes didn't answer immediately. Depends on how public we make it. If we go through official channels, we'll be tied up in investigations for years. Testimony, depositions, court appearances. You'd be a target the whole time. And if we don't go through official channels, we release everything to the press, multiple outlets simultaneously, make it impossible to suppress. But then we run. New identities, new lives. You'd never be Clara Whitfield again. Clara thought about that, about the life she'd built at Metro General, the quiet anonymity, the safety of being nobody. She'd hated it, but at least it had been hers. What about Daniel? She asked. Reyes glanced over at the medical chair. He gets the same choice, new identity or extended protective custody. That's not much of a choice. It's the only one we've got. Dr. Navarro stepped away from Daniel, pulling off his gloves. He's stable. Wounds clean, no major organ damage. He'll need rest and antibiotics, but he'll make it. Daniel looked half asleep already, the painkillers kicking in. Clara stood and walked over to him. Hey. His eyes opened. Hey. You doing okay? Define okay. Clara almost smiled. Still breathing, still coherent. Then, yeah, barely. She sat on the edge of the medical chair. I need to ask you something. Shoot. Marcus, did he know what he was getting into when he started investigating? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he knew. And he did it anyway. He said some things were worth dying for, that if good people stayed quiet, bad people would own the world. Claire's throat tightened. That sounds like him. He also said his sister was the toughest person he'd ever met. Said if anything happened to him, you'd finish what he started. I'm not that tough. You pulled me out of a hospital, fought off armed contractors, and just survived a coordinated hit by a presidential candidate's personal kill squad. I'd say Marcus knew what he was talking about. Clara looked away. I'm tired, Daniel. I'm so tired of fighting. Then don't fight, just stand. Sometimes that's enough. She met his eyes. And if I fall, then I'll catch you. That's what teammates do. Clara felt something break inside her chest. Not painful, just open. She squeezed his hand once, then stood and walked back to the conference table. Kira was deep in her work, screen scrolling with code and data streams. Reyes was on the phone, speaking quietly. Clara pulled out her own phone and stared at it. No messages, no missed calls. Nobody even knew she was missing. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a number she hadn't called in years. Her mother. They hadn't spoken since Marcus's funeral. The conversation had ended badly, accusations and grief spilling over into words neither of them could take back. Clara's finger hovered over the call button, then she put the phone away. Not yet. Not until this was finished. Kira's voice cut through the silence. I've got something. Everyone turned. Kira pulled up a new screen. The financial records show a pattern. Every transaction Hale makes goes through a primary account in the Caymans. But before it hits that account, it routes through a holding company in Delaware. So, Reyes said, so that holding company is registered to a law firm in D.C., and that law firm represents exactly one client. Hale. Bingo. Which means if we freeze the Delaware account, we cut off her access to everything downstream. All the offshore money becomes untouchable, at least temporarily. Reyes leaned forward. How temporarily? 24 hours, maybe 48, long enough to make her vulnerable. Can you freeze it without tipping her off? Kira grinned. I can make it look like a routine audit. Treasury Department does them all the time. By the time her lawyers figure out it's not routine, we'll be 3 moves ahead. Do it! Kira's fingers flew across the keyboard. Clara watched the screens update in real time, numbers shifting, accounts locking. It felt surreal. This was really happening. They were actually dismantling a senator's criminal empire from a basement facility in the middle of the night. Done, Kira said. Account frozen. She'll get notification in about 6 hours. What about the weapons deal? Clara asked. Dead in the water, no money, no deal. Reyes stood. Next step. We need to secure the communications drive. That's the evidence that directly implicates her. Daniel spoke up from the medical chair, his voice groggy but focused. The audio files. There's one in particular. Conversation between Hale and a Russian buyer. She's negotiating the sale of classified satellite data. You can hear her voice. Clear as day. Kira pulled up the audio files, clicking through until she found the right one. The room went silent as the recording played. A woman's voice, smooth and professional. The data will be delivered within 72 hours. Payment in full, as discussed. A man's voice, heavily accented. And the security protocols? Already compromised. Your team will have access. Senator Hale, you understand if this fails. It won't fail. I don't deal in failures. The recording ended. Clara felt sick. That voice. She'd heard it on the news, at political rallies, in campaign ads. Victoria Hale, presidential candidate, traitor. That's enough, Reyes said quietly. That's more than enough. Kira copied the file, creating multiple backups. I'm sending this to 3 separate secure servers, cloud-based, geographically distributed. Even if she tries to scrub it, it'll still exist. Good. Now we need a journalist. Clara looked up. What? Someone with reach. Someone who can't be bought or intimidated. We need to get the story out before Hale realizes what's happening. Kira was already typing. I know someone. Investigative reporter, Pulitzer winner. She's been trying to dig into defense contractor corruption for years. Can you trust her? I trust that she wants the story more than she wants to stay safe, and that's enough. Make the call. While Kira reached out to the journalist, Clara stood and walked to the far end of the room, needing space to think. This was it. The moment where everything either worked or collapsed. If they released the files and Hale had enough warning, she'd activate her contingencies. People would die. Evidence would disappear. But if they waited too long, she'd find them first. And they'd all end up like Marcus. Clara's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she saw the preview. Clara, it's Matheson. We need to talk. Alone. Her stomach turned to ice. She showed the message to Reyes. His expression darkened. Don't respond. What if he knows something? He knows plenty, all of it designed to get you killed. Or maybe he's flipping. Maybe he wants out. Clara, I'm just saying we should consider it. Reyes grabbed her arm, his voice low and urgent. Listen to me. Matheson is a professional. He doesn't flip. He doesn't have crises of conscience. He executes orders and collects paychecks. This is a trap. Then we spring it. On our terms. That's insane. It's also our only chance to get confirmation. We have evidence, but we don't have direct testimony. Matheson could give us that. Or he could put a bullet in your head. Clara pulled her arm free. Then I guess I better not give him the chance. Before Reyes could argue further, Clara's phone rang. Matheson. She answered. Talk fast. I know where you are, Matheson said, his voice calm. I know what you're planning, and I'm telling you it won't work. Why not? Because Hale already knows. She's had surveillance on Reyes since before you pulled Cross out of the hospital. She knows about the facility. She knows about the files. Clara's blood went cold. You're lying. Am I? Then explain why there are 3 teams currently moving toward your location. ETA, 12 minutes. Clara looked at Reyes. He says we're compromised. Reyes grabbed his phone, pulling up security feeds. His face went pale. He's right. Multiple vehicles. Moving in formation. They're not trying to hide it. Kira stopped typing. How is that possible? This facility is off every grid. Unless someone on the inside told them, Clara said, looking at Matheson's contact on her screen. It wasn't me, Matheson said, his voice tight. But it was someone. And if you don't get out now, none of this matters. Hale will bury the evidence, bury you, and keep climbing. Why are you telling me this? Matheson was silent for a long moment. Then, because I'm tired. I've done terrible things for terrible people. I thought I was serving my country. Turns out I was just serving myself. Marcus figured that out before I did. Maybe it's time I listened to a dead man. Clara's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want? Meet me. Alone. I'll give you everything. Direct testimony, communications logs, access codes to accounts even Hale doesn't know I have. Why would you do that? Because if I'm going down, I'm taking her with me. Clara looked at Reyes. He was shaking his head, mouthing no. She ignored him. Where? Riverside Park, East Pavilion, 30 minutes. I'll be there. Come alone, Clara. I mean it. Anyone else shows up, I disappear, and so does your case. The line went dead. Reyes was on his feet. Absolutely not. This is exactly what he wants. He's our only shot at direct testimony. He's lying. It's a setup. Maybe. But if he's telling the truth, and we ignore it, Hale walks. Dr. Navarro spoke up. We need to evacuate, now. If there are teams coming. How long to pack up? Reyes asked. 10 minutes. Maybe less if we leave the heavy equipment. Do it. Kira, grab the essentials. Daniel, can you move? Daniel was already sitting up, pulling the IV out of his arm. Yeah, I can move. Clara grabbed the duffel bag with the USB drives. I'm going to meet Matheson. Like hell you are. Reyes, bought off ours. No, we go together or we don't go at all. Clara stepped close to him, her voice dropping. You said it yourself. Hale has surveillance on you. If you come with me, you'll lead them right to Matheson. He'll bolt. We lose everything. Then we lose everything. Better than losing you. This isn't your call. Clara? She was already moving toward the exit. Reyes grabbed her arm again, harder this time. Your brother would kill me if I let you walk into this. Clara looked him in the eye. My brother's dead, and I'm not asking permission. She pulled free and headed for the elevator. Behind her, Reyes swore viciously, but he didn't follow. The ride up felt like it took forever. Clara checked her weapons. Knife, backup knife, no gun. She'd have to work with what she had. The elevator doors opened. She stepped out into the parking lot and came face to face with the woman from the hospital. 4 armed operatives flanked her. The woman smiled. Going somewhere? Clara's hand moved to her knife. The woman raised a finger. I wouldn't. You're good, but you're not that good. Clara's mind raced, calculating angles, distances, odds. All bad. How did you find us? Clara asked, buying time. Matheson told us where you'd be, told us exactly what to say to get you moving. The woman stepped closer. He's very good at reading people. Knew you'd come running if he played the redemption card. Clara's jaw clenched. Where is he? Waiting. You'll see him soon enough. One of the operatives stepped forward with zip ties. Clara didn't resist as they bound her wrists. No point. Not yet. They led her to a vehicle and shoved her inside. The woman climbed in beside her. Senator Hale sends her regards. Tell her I'll send mine soon. The woman laughed. I like you. It's a shame this has to end badly. The vehicle pulled away. Clara watched the facility disappear behind them and hoped, prayed, that Reyes and the others had gotten out in time, because if they hadn't, this was over before it started. They drove for 20 minutes, winding through empty streets. Finally, they pulled up to an abandoned industrial site near the river. Matheson was waiting outside, arms crossed. They pulled Clara out of the vehicle and walked her toward him. He looked older in person than he had at the pier, tired, like he hadn't slept in days. Clara, he said quietly, you set me up. I did what I was ordered to do. And now? Now I finish it. He gestured to one of the operatives who opened the door to a nearby building. Inside, bound to chairs, were Reyes, Daniel, Kira, and Dr. Navarro. All alive. All watching her with varying expressions of anger and resignation. Clara's heart sank. They hadn't escaped. They'd been caught. Matheson stepped in front of her. Senator Hale wanted me to extend an offer. I'm listening. Give us the drives. All of them. And everyone walks. You disappear. Live your lives. Never speak of this again. And if we refuse? Matheson pulled out a gun. Then we make an example, starting with Captain Reyes. He aimed the weapon at Reyes's head. Clara's mind raced. No backup. No weapons. No leverage. Just her and 5 lives she couldn't save. She looked at Reyes. He met her eyes and shook his head slightly. Don't do it. Clara looked back at Matheson. The drives are encrypted. Even if I give them to you, you'll never access them. We'll take our chances. Marcus coded them. Personal encryption. Only 2 people knew the keys, him and me. Matheson's eyes narrowed. So unlock them. No. Then Reyes dies. Clara's voice didn't waver. Then shoot him. Reyes's eyes widened. Matheson's finger tightened on the trigger. Wait, Clara said. Matheson paused. Clara took a slow breath. I'll unlock them. But not here. I need a computer, access to the files. Matheson studied her, weighing the truth of it. Finally, he lowered the weapon. You've got 10 minutes. They brought her to a laptop set up on a makeshift table. Clara sat down, her bound wrists making it awkward but not impossible. She pulled up the encrypted files, typed in the password. The files unlocked. Matheson leaned over her shoulder. Good. Now, Clara hit a key combination. The screen flashed. Every file on the drive began uploading, not to Hale's servers, to every major news outlet in the country. Matheson's face went white. What did you— Insurance, Clara said. Marcus built in a dead man's switch. If the files were accessed under duress, they'd auto-release. Matheson grabbed her, yanking her out of the chair. Stop it, now. Can't, it's already in motion. He threw her to the ground and turned to the operatives. Shut it down. Kill the upload. They scrambled to the laptop, but it was too late. The progress bar hit 100%. Files sent. The room went silent. Matheson stared at the screen, his face ashen. Then his phone rang. He answered, listened. His hand dropped to his side. She wants to speak to you, he said quietly, holding the phone out to Clara. Clara took it. Clara Whitfield, Victoria Hale's voice was ice. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Yeah, I ended you. You've signed your own death warrant. Maybe, but at least I'll die knowing you're going down first. Hale was silent for a long moment. Then, you're right. I am going down. But so are a lot of innocent people. Operatives in the field whose covers you just blew. Witnesses whose locations you just exposed. Blood will be on your hands, Clara, not mine. Clara's stomach twisted. She hadn't thought, but no. Marcus wouldn't have built the switch without considering that. You're bluffing, Clara said. Am I? Check the news in about 6 hours. See how many bodies pile up. Then ask yourself if it was worth it. The line went dead. Clara lowered the phone, her hands shaking. Matheson was watching her. She's not bluffing. Shut up. People are going to die because of what you just did. Clara rounded on him. People already died. Marcus died. Whitmore died. How many others has she killed to protect her empire? That's different. How? Matheson didn't answer. One of the operatives spoke up. Sir, we're getting reports. Multiple arrests. FBI, DOJ, Treasury. They're moving on Hale's network. Matheson closed his eyes. It's over. For her, Claire said. Not for us. She looked at Reyes. You okay? He nodded, though his jaw was tight. You just played the riskiest hand I've ever seen. Did it work? We'll find out. One of the operatives stepped forward, gun raised toward Clara. Matheson held up a hand. Stand down. Sir, I said stand down. The operative hesitated, then lowered his weapon. Matheson looked at Clara. You've got 12 hours. Maybe less. Then Hale's people will regroup, and they'll come for you. Let them. You don't understand. She's not the only one. This network runs deeper than you know. You just kicked a hornet's nest. Good, Clara said. Let them all come out where we can see them. Matheson's phone rang again. He glanced at the screen, then showed it to Clara. Senator Hale arrested. Clara felt something release in her chest. It was real. It was actually happening. Matheson pocketed the phone and looked at his team. Cut them loose. Sir, that's an order. The operatives moved forward, cutting the zip ties binding Reyes, Daniel, Kira, and Dr. Navarro. Matheson looked back at Clara. For what it's worth, Marcus would be proud of you. Clara's voice went flat. Marcus would spit in your face. Matheson didn't argue. He gestured to his team. We're leaving. They filed out, engines starting, vehicles pulling away, leaving Clara and the others alone in the empty building. Reyes stood slowly, rubbing his wrists. That was the stupidest, most reckless thing I've ever seen. Did it work? Yeah, it worked. Clara felt her legs give out. She sat down hard on the concrete floor, her whole body shaking. Daniel limped over, sitting beside her. You okay? Ask me tomorrow. Kira was already on her phone, pulling up news feeds. It's everywhere. All the major outlets, financial records, communications logs, everything. Dr. Navarro checked Daniel's bandages. We need to get him proper care, soon. Reyes pulled out his own phone, making calls, coordinating. Clara just sat there, staring at nothing. It was over. Hale was arrested. The files were public. Justice was happening. So why did she feel so empty? Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Senator Victoria Hale arrested on charges of espionage, arms trafficking, and murder. Investigation ongoing. Clara read it twice. Then a second alert. Update. Multiple arrests across government and military. Largest corruption probe in decades. She showed the screen to Reyes. He nodded. It's really happening. Yeah, Kira walked over. The journalist I contacted wants an interview. Exclusive. Your story, your words. Clara shook her head. No interviews. Clara, this is... I said no. She stood, her legs steadier now. I'm done. I did what I came to do. The rest is someone else's problem. Reyes studied her. What are you going to do now? Clara thought about Metro General, about her small apartment, about the quiet life she'd built. All of it felt like it belonged to someone else now. I don't know, she said honestly. You could stay. Help us clean up the rest of this mess. There are more names on those lists, more people who need to answer for what they've done. Clara looked at him. Is that what you want? I want you to do whatever keeps you alive and sane. In that order. Clara almost smiled. I'll think about it. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered carefully. Yeah? Clara Whitfield. The voice was female, older, calm. My name is Director Sarah Kensington. I oversee the task force investigating Senator Hale. Congratulations on the arrest. Thank you. I'm calling because we need your testimony, and because I'd like to offer you a position. Clara's eyebrows rose. A position doing what? What you're good at. Finding people who think they're untouchable. Bringing them into the light. I'm a nurse. You were a combat medic, spec ops, one of the best we ever trained, and you just took down a sitting senator using nothing but evidence and nerve. I had help. And you'd have help in this role too. A team, resources, the authority to go after people like Hale before they get that powerful. Clara looked at Reyes. He was watching her, expression unreadable. I need time to think, Clara said. You've got 24 hours. After that, the offer expires. The line went dead. Clara lowered the phone. Daniel spoke up. You going to take it? I don't know. For what it's worth, I think you should. Why? Because you're good at it, and because the world needs people who won't stop when things get hard. Clara looked at him. What about you? What are you going to do? Daniel shrugged. Heal, testify, then probably disappear for a while. I've had enough excitement for one lifetime. Kira cleared her throat. Speaking of disappearing, we should move. This location is compromised. Matheson knows where we are, which means others might too. Reyes nodded. She's right. Let's go. They gathered what little gear they had and headed for the exit. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Clara stood in the parking lot, breathing in the cold morning air. It felt like the first real breath she'd taken in years. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. You did good, kid. M. Clara stared at the message. M. Marcus. But that was impossible. Her brother was dead. She'd seen the reports, attended the funeral, buried him. This had to be someone playing games. Or... Clara's hands started shaking. She showed the message to Reyes. His face went pale. That's not possible. That's what I thought. Clara, Marcus is dead. I saw the body. I attended the funeral. So did I. Then who? Another text came through. Pier 57. Come alone. You'll understand everything. Clara looked up at Reyes. He was already shaking his head. Don't. This is another trap. Or it's not. Clara. But she was already moving, heading for the vehicle. Reyes grabbed her arm. You can't keep doing this. Walking into every trap that gets set. I know. Then stop. Clara pulled free. I will. Right after this one. She climbed into the driver's seat. Reyes stood there, torn between following her and letting her go. Finally, he stepped back. Clara started the engine and drove toward Pier 57 as the sun rose over the city. The morning traffic was light as Clara drove toward the waterfront, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was exactly what Reyes had warned her about, Another trap, another manipulation, another way to get her killed. But that text. You did good, kid. Only Marcus had ever called her that. Only Marcus had used those exact words after her first successful field op, after she'd saved 3 soldiers pinned down by sniper fire. Clara's throat felt tight. She parked 2 blocks from Pier 57 and approached on foot, her hand resting on the knife at her ankle. The pier looked different in daylight, less menacing, more sad. Just another forgotten piece of infrastructure slowly rotting into the bay. A figure stood at the far end, silhouetted against the water. Clara's heart hammered as she walked closer. The figure turned. Not Marcus. A woman. Mid-50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a jacket that had seen better days. She had Marcus's eyes, the same dark brown, the same direct stare. "Who are you?" Clara asked, stopping 10 feet away. "Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Mora. I worked with your brother." "That text was from me. I'm sorry for the deception, but I needed to be sure you'd come alone." Clara's hand tightened on her knife. "You used my dead brother to manipulate me. I used the only thing I knew would cut through your caution. Marcus talked about you constantly, how stubborn you were, how you'd walk into fire if you thought someone needed saving." "What do you want?" Mora pulled out a tablet and held it up. The screen showed news coverage. Victoria Hale being led out of her Georgetown home in handcuffs, surrounded by federal agents. Another clip showed Matheson being arrested at an airport, trying to flee the country. "You did it," Mora said quietly. "You actually did it. Took down one of the most powerful corruption networks in modern history." "Get to the point." Mora lowered the tablet. "The point is that Marcus started something he couldn't finish. But you did. And there are others who need the same thing. People in power who think they're untouchable. Systems that protect abusers and punish whistleblowers. And I'm putting together a team. People who aren't afraid to go after the powerful. People who understand that sometimes justice requires breaking rules." Clara laughed, harsh and bitter. "You're recruiting me. I'm offering you a chance to make what happened to Marcus mean something, to make sure other families don't lose people they love because someone decided profit mattered more than lives." "I already got that speech from Director Kensington." Mora's expression hardened. "Kensington wants you working within the system, following protocols, asking permission to do what needs to be done. I'm offering you something different." "What?" "Freedom. To operate how you need to go after targets the official channels won't touch because they're too politically connected or too well protected." Clara crossed her arms. "That sounds like vigilante justice. It sounds like the only kind of justice that actually works when the system is rigged." "And if I say no?" Mora shrugged. "Then you go back to being Clara Whitfield, nurse. You clock in, you clock out, you save the lives in front of you. There's honor in that. But there's also a limit to how much change one person can make from inside a hospital." Clara looked out on the water, watching the morning light dance across the surface. Marcus believed in the system. He believed that if you did things right, followed the rules, justice would prevail. And look what it got him. Clara's jaw clenched. "Don't." "I'm not trying to dishonor his memory. I'm trying to honor it by learning from his mistakes. He played by the rules, he trusted the chain of command, and they killed him for it." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because I was there, like..." Mora's voice cracked slightly. "I was his commanding officer when he started investigating. I told him to take it through official channels, to document everything and submit it up the chain. And 24 hours after he did, someone rigged his training exercise. I've been living with that for 3 years." Clara turned back to her. "So this is about guilt. This is about making sure it never happens again." They stood in silence for a moment, the sound of water lapping against pilings filling the space between them. Finally, Clara spoke. "I need to think about it." Mora nodded. "You've got 48 hours. After that, I'm moving forward with or without you." She pulled out a card and handed it to Clara. "Encrypted number. When you decide, call." Clara took the card. "What happens to Hale?" "Trial. Probably lengthy, definitely public. She'll fight it with every resource she has left." "And Matheson?" "Already talking, trading testimony for a reduced sentence. He'll probably spend the rest of his life in prison, but he won't face execution." "That doesn't seem like justice." "It's not. It's pragmatism. We need his testimony to connect all the pieces. to make sure everyone involved goes down. Clara pocketed the card. I should go. Clara, Mora's voice stopped her. Your brother's last words, do you know what they were? Clara's chest tightened. The official report said he didn't have any, that the explosion killed him instantly. The official report lied. I was on comms when it happened. He had about 30 seconds before the bleeding took him, and he used them to say one thing. Mora's eyes were wet now. He said, tell Clara she was right, about everything. Clara felt something break inside her. Right about what? About leaving. About getting out before the system crushed you. He spent his last moments regretting that he didn't listen to you, that he stayed when he should have walked away. Clara couldn't speak. Mora stepped closer. He also said to tell you that you're the bravest person he ever knew, and that whatever path you chose, it would be the right one. Clara's vision blurred. She turned away, wiping her eyes roughly. I have to go. She walked back to the car, her legs feeling like they might give out any second. Behind her, Mora called out one last time. He was proud of you, Clara, right up until the end. Clara didn't turn around. She just kept walking. She drove without direction for 20 minutes, her mind spinning, until she found herself pulling into Metro General's parking lot. The hospital looked exactly the same as it had when she'd left. Same fluorescent lights visible through the windows. Same ambulances parked at the bay. Same tired staff shuffling in and out. Like nothing had happened. Like the world hadn't just fundamentally shifted. Clara sat in the car, staring at the building. 3 years she'd worked here. 3 years of being invisible, of being the quiet nurse nobody paid attention to. And in the span of one night, she'd dismantled a corruption network that had operated for decades. Her phone rang. Daniel. She answered. Yeah. Where are you? Metro General. Why? I don't know. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Reyes told me about the text, about Mora. Of course he did. Are you okay? Clara laughed, but it came out broken. No, I'm really not. You want company? I want to understand why this feels worse than when I thought my brother was just dead. Now I know his last moments were spent regretting his choices, and somehow that's harder. Because now you know he suffered. Not just physically, but emotionally. That's always harder. Clara pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. I don't know what to do, Daniel. Yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're terrified of what comes next. You spent 3 years hiding from who you are. Now you can't hide anymore. And that's scary. I wasn't hiding. Clara, you were working as a nurse in a hospital where nobody knew your real background, where you could pretend to be normal. That's the definition of hiding. I was trying to save lives. And you did. But you could save a lot more if you stopped limiting yourself to one hospital, one shift, one patient at a time. Clara sat up. You sound like Mora. Maybe Mora has a point. Or maybe she's just good at manipulation. Maybe both things are true. Clara closed her eyes. I'm tired, Daniel. I'm so tired of fighting. Then don't fight. Just decide. What do you actually want? Not what Marcus wanted. Not what anyone else thinks you should do. What do you want? Clara thought about that. What did she want? She wanted her brother back, but that wasn't possible. She wanted to feel safe, but she'd never felt truly safe, even before this started. She wanted to matter, to do work that meant something. I want to make sure nobody else loses their brother the way I did, she said finally. Then you already know what to do. The line went quiet. Then Daniel spoke again, his voice softer. For what it's worth, I think you're extraordinary. And I think Marcus knew it too. Clara's throat tightened. Take care of yourself, Daniel. You too. She hung up and sat in the car for another 5 minutes. Then she got out and walked into the hospital. The ER was busy. Morning rush, people coming in with chest pain and twisted ankles and sick kids. Clara moved through it like a ghost, heading for the administrative wing. She found the HR office and knocked. A tired-looking woman in her 40s looked up from her computer. Can I help you? Clara Whitfield. I'm here to submit my resignation. The woman blinked. Oh, is there a problem? We can... No problem. I'm just moving on. Do you have another position lined up? Clara thought about Kensington's offer, about Mora's team. Yeah, I do. She filled out the paperwork quickly, her handwriting messy but legible. 2 weeks' notice. Standard protocol, except she knew she wouldn't be back for those 2 weeks. This was it. The end of Clara Whitfield, Invisible Nurse. She walked back to the ER one last time, looking at the faces of the residents and attending physicians who'd treated her like furniture for 3 years. None of them noticed her leaving, just like they'd never noticed her arriving. Clara stepped outside and called Reyes. "I'm in," she said when he answered. "In what?" "Kensington's offer. I'll testify. I'll work with the task force, but on my terms." "Which are?" "I don't follow orders I don't agree with. I don't participate in operations that compromise my ethics, and I get final say on which targets I pursue." Reyes laughed. "Kensington is going to love you." "She doesn't have to love me. She just has to accept that I'm not a soldier anymore." "What are you then?" Clara thought about it. "Someone who's done being quiet." "Fair enough. I'll set up the meeting." "Thanks." "Clara." "Yeah? I'm glad you're doing this. The world needs more people who won't back down. The world needs fewer people who think they're above consequences." "That too." She hung up and stood in the parking lot, watching the hospital through the chain-link fence. A part of her would miss it, the simplicity of it, the clear hierarchy of need: stop bleeding, restart hearts, save the person in front of you. But that part was smaller than the part that was ready to fight bigger battles. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Victoria Hale pleads not guilty to all charges. Trial set for 6 months from today. Clara read it twice. 6 months. 6 months for Hale's lawyers to stall and delay and try to dismantle the case. 6 months for the news cycle to move on. 6 months for people to forget why this mattered. Unless someone kept it in the spotlight. Clara pulled out Mora's card and stared at the number. Then she put it away. Not yet. First, she'd work with Kensington. Learn the system from the inside. Understand its strengths and limitations. Then she'd decide if Mora's approach was necessary. She drove to the safe house where Reyes had relocated everyone. It was in a different part of the city now, a residential area that looked painfully normal. Inside, Daniel was asleep on a couch, his bandages fresh. Kira was at a computer, still monitoring news feeds. Dr. Navarro was organizing medical supplies. Reyes stood near the window, phone to his ear, coordinating something. He hung up when he saw Clara. "Kensington wants to meet tomorrow, 9 a.m. "Where?" "Federal Building, downtown. She's bringing the lead prosecutors." "Good." Daniel stirred, opening his eyes. "You came back. Did you think I wouldn't?" "I thought you might decide to run. Wouldn't blame you." Clara sat on the edge of the couch. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got shot and then spent 12 hours running for my life." "So, fantastic," Clara smiled. "You're going to be okay." "Yeah, thanks to you. Thanks to all of us." Daniel reached out and squeezed her hand. "What you did, releasing those files, that took guts. Marcus would be proud." Clara's eyes stung. "Stop saying that." "Why?" "Because it makes it harder to stay focused." "Good. You should feel things. That's what makes you human." Clara pulled her hand back gently. "I need to not be human for a while. I need to be effective." "You can be both." "Can you?" Daniel thought about it. "I don't know. I've never tried." Kira called out from the computer. "You guys should see this." They gathered around her screen. A press conference. Director Kensington standing at a podium, flanked by FBI and DOJ officials. Thanks to the bravery of several individuals who risked everything to expose this corruption, we've been able to bring charges against Senator Victoria Hale and 17 co-conspirators. This investigation is ongoing, and we expect more arrests in the coming weeks. A reporter shouted a question. "Can you confirm that one of those individuals was a civilian nurse with no official government affiliation?" Kensington's expression didn't change. "I cannot comment on the identities of witnesses while the investigation is active. But I can say that this case would not have been possible without ordinary citizens choosing to do extraordinary things." Another reporter. "Is it true that classified military files were leaked to the press?" "Files containing evidence of crimes are not classified material. They're evidence. And evidence belongs in the hands of those who can act on it. The press conference continued, but Clara stopped listening. Ordinary citizens choosing to do extraordinary things. That's what she was now. Not a soldier, not a spy, just someone who refused to look away. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She stepped away from the group to answer. Yeah. Miss Whitfield, this is Catherine Brooks. I'm a journalist with the Post. I'd like to interview you about... No. I understand you're hesitant, but the public deserves to hear... The public has the files. They can read them. They don't need me explaining what's already there. But your perspective. My perspective is that powerful people got away with murder for too long, and now they're not. That's the story. Everything else is noise. She hung up. Reyes was watching her. You're going to get a lot of those calls. Then I'll keep saying no. Eventually they'll write the story anyway, with or without your input. Let them. I'm not doing this for credit. What are you doing it for? Clara looked out the window at the quiet street. So the next person who sees something wrong doesn't have to be as scared as I was. The room went quiet. Then Kira spoke up. That's actually kind of beautiful. Clara shook her head. It's just true. Her phone rang again, this time a number she recognized. Her mother. Clara stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the decline button. Then she answered. Hi, Mom. Clara. Her mother's voice was tight, controlled. I saw the news. Yeah. They're saying you helped bring down a senator. They're not wrong. Silence on the line. Then, your brother would be proud. Clara's eyes closed. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. He always said you were the strongest person he knew. He was wrong. I spent 3 years hiding. You spent 3 years surviving. There's a difference. Clara's throat felt raw. I'm sorry I didn't call. After the funeral, You don't have to explain. I understand. Do you? You lost your brother. I lost my son. We both needed to grieve in our own ways. Clara wiped her eyes. Miss him. Me too. Her mother's voice broke slightly. Every single day. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared loss connecting them across the distance. Are you safe? Her mother asked finally. Yeah, for now. Good. That's all that matters. Mom? Yes? Thank you for not being angry. Oh, I'm furious. You nearly got yourself killed chasing ghosts. But I'm also proud, because you did what you thought was right, even when it was terrifying. Clara almost smiled. I love you. I love you too. Call me when this is over, really over. I will. She hung up and took a shaky breath. Reyes approached quietly. You okay? Getting there. Good. Because Kensington just sent over the preliminary witness list. You're scheduled to testify in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? They're fast-tracking it. Want to capitalize on public attention before it fades. Clara nodded. What do I need to do? Prep sessions, document review, practice testimony. It's going to be intense. I can handle intense. I know you can. The next 3 weeks were exactly as brutal as Reyes had warned. Clara spent hours in windowless rooms with prosecutors, going over every detail of what had happened. They asked her to relive the hospital attack, the Union Station shooting, the warehouse confrontation. Each time she had to push down the emotions and focus on facts. Dates. Times. Names. Actions. She met with Kensington twice. The first time was procedural, outlining expectations, reviewing security protocols, discussing protection options. The second time was different. Kensington leaned back in her chair, studying Clara across the desk. You're good at this. At what? Compartmentalizing, staying focused under pressure. Most witnesses fall apart during prep. You just get sharper. I've had practice. Your military record is impressive. Decorated combat medic, multiple commendations. That was a different life. Was it? Or is this just a different battlefield? Clara met her eyes. What do you want, Director? I want to offer you a permanent position, not as a witness, as an investigator. I already told you I'd consider it. And I'm telling you the offer has an expiration date. Once this trial is over, if you're not on my team, you'll be a target. Hale's network is bigger than what we've arrested. There are people who will want revenge. So you're recruiting me out of fear? I'm recruiting you because you're effective. The fear is just reality. Clara stood. I'll think about it. You have 1 week. Clara left the office and walked out into the afternoon sun. The federal building was downtown, surrounded by tourists and business people and street vendors. Normal life, happening all around her. She bought a coffee from a cart and sat on a bench, watching people pass. A young mother with a stroller, an old man feeding pigeons, a group of college students arguing about politics. None of them knew what was happening behind closed doors. The deals being made, the power being consolidated, the threats being neutralized. And maybe that was okay. Maybe that's how it should work. People living their lives while others fought to keep those lives safe. Her phone buzzed. Daniel, trial date confirmed, 6 months out. You ready for this? Clara typed back. Ready as I'll ever be. The trial preparation continued. More interviews, more document reviews, more sleepless nights going over testimony. And then finally, it was time. The courthouse was surrounded by media, cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions, protesters holding signs both supporting and condemning Hale. Clara walked through it all with her head down, flanked by security. Inside, the courtroom was packed. She took the stand on day 3 of the trial, after 2 days of opening statements and preliminary witnesses. The prosecutor approached. Please state your name for the record. Clara Whitfield. And what is your occupation? I was a registered nurse. Now I'm an investigator with the Federal Corruption Task Force. A murmur went through the courtroom. The prosecutor continued. Can you tell us how you first encountered the evidence against Senator Hale? Clara took a breath. My brother, Marcus Whitfield, was investigating corruption within military contracting. He compiled extensive evidence of illegal activity. When he died, I was given access to those files. And what did you do with them? I verified them, cross-referenced them, and then I released them to ensure they couldn't be buried. The defense attorney objected. Your Honor, the witness just admitted to illegally disseminating classified information. The information wasn't classified, Clara said calmly. It was evidence of crimes. There's a difference. The judge raised a hand. The witness will refrain from speaking unless asked a direct question. Clara nodded. The prosecutor continued. Can you describe what you found in those files? Financial records showing Senator Hale receiving payments from foreign entities in exchange for classified intelligence. Communications showing her coordinating weapons sales to hostile nations, and audio recordings of her directly ordering the elimination of witnesses. Another murmur. The defense attorney stood. Objection. The witness is testifying to documents not yet entered into evidence. The documents are entered as Exhibits 47 through 89, the prosecutor countered. The judge nodded. Overruled. Continue. For the next 4 hours, Clara walked the jury through everything. The USB drives, the shell companies, the communications, the money trail. She showed them Marcus's notes, his analysis, his conclusions, and she showed them the human cost. My brother died because he uncovered this corruption, Clara said, her voice steady. Dr. Richard Whitmore died because he saw something he wasn't supposed to. Daniel Cross nearly died because he continued my brother's work. This isn't about politics. It's about people in power who believed they could kill without consequence. The defense attorney cross-examined her for another 2 hours, trying to poke holes in her testimony, suggesting she had ulterior motives, implying she was unstable. Clara didn't flinch. She answered every question directly, without emotion, letting the facts speak for themselves. When she stepped down, she caught Hale's eyes across the courtroom. The senator stared back, her expression cold and composed. But Clara could see it underneath. Fear. The trial continued for 3 more weeks. More witnesses. More evidence. More testimony. Clara attended every day, sitting in the gallery, watching justice unfold. On the final day, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was so quiet Clara could hear her own heartbeat. We, the jury, find the defendant, Victoria Hale, guilty on all counts. The room erupted. Reporters scrambled for the exits. Hale's face went white. Her lawyers immediately started filing motions, but it didn't matter. She'd been found guilty. By a jury of her peers, in open court, with the whole world watching. Clara sat in the gallery, feeling the weight of 3 years lift off her shoulders. It was done. Really done. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed her. Miss Whitfield, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you think justice was served? What message does this send to other whistleblowers? Clara stopped at the bottom of the courthouse steps and turned to face the cameras. I think this sends one message, she said clearly, that no one is above the law, not senators, not generals, not billionaires. If you commit crimes, you will be held accountable, even if it takes years, even if you think you're untouchable. What's next for you? A reporter called out. Clara thought about Kensington's offer, about Maura's team, about the choice she'd been avoiding for weeks. Next, I keep working. There are more people like Senator Hale, more systems that protect the powerful and punish the vulnerable, and I'm going to help dismantle them. As a federal investigator? Clara smiled slightly. As whatever it takes. She walked away from the cameras, through the crowd, to where Reyes and Daniel were waiting. You did good, Reyes said. We did good, Clara corrected. Daniel pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of his healing injuries. Marcus would be proud. Clara didn't argue this time. Because maybe it was true. Maybe her brother would be proud of what she'd become. Not a soldier, not a spy, not a nurse hiding from her past, just someone who refused to be quiet when it mattered. They walked to a nearby coffee shop, away from the media circus, and sat at a corner table. So, Daniel said, what now? Clara pulled out both cards, Kensington's official contact and Maura's encrypted number. She stared at them for a long moment. Then she tore Maura's card in half. I'm going to try it the right way first, she said. Work within the system, see if it can actually deliver justice. And if it can't, Reyes asked, then I'll reevaluate. Daniel smiled. That's very diplomatic. I'm learning. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking coffee that was too bitter and too hot. Finally, Clara spoke. Thank you, both of you, for not letting me do this alone. You didn't give us much choice, Reyes said. You kind of dragged us along. Still, I'm grateful. Daniel raised his cup. To dragging people into doing the right thing. They clinked cups. Clara's phone buzzed. Kensington. Welcome to the team. Report Monday at 800. Clara showed the message to Reyes. He nodded. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's very on brand for you. Clara laughed, and it felt good. Real. She thought about Marcus, about everything he'd sacrificed, everything he'd believed in. And she realized something. He hadn't been wrong to believe in the system. He'd just been early. One person couldn't fix everything alone, but together, people who refused to look away, who refused to be quiet, who refused to accept that power meant immunity. Together, they could change things, slowly, imperfectly. But really, Clara stood, leaving money on the table for the coffee. Where are you going? Daniel asked. To start my new job. It's Saturday, so I'll start Monday. But right now I'm going to visit my mother. Tell her I'm okay. Actually talk to her. Reyes smiled. That sounds healthy. Don't get used to it. Clara walked out of the coffee shop into the late afternoon sun. The city moved around her, people rushing to catch buses, kids playing in parks, couples holding hands. Normal life. The kind Marcus had died protecting. The kind Clara had spent 3 years hiding in. And now, the kind she'd spend the rest of her life defending. Not from the shadows. Not as someone invisible. But as Clara Whitfield. Former combat medic. Former nurse. Current investigator. Someone who'd learned the hard way that silence didn't keep you safe. It just made you complicit. Someone who'd discovered that being underestimated was only a weakness if you let it be. Someone who understood that real power wasn't about having a title or an office or a uniform. It was about refusing to back down when someone told you to shut up and accept how things were. Her phone buzzed one more time, another unknown number. She answered cautiously. Yeah? Clara Whitfield? The voice was young, nervous. My name is Jennifer Park. I'm a systems analyst at a defense contractor, and I think I found something you need to see. Clara stopped walking. Here we go, she thought. Tell me everything, she said. And as the young woman started talking about falsified safety reports and ignored whistleblower complaints and people in power who thought they could get away with it, Clara smiled, because they were about to learn otherwise. One case at a time, one witness at a time, one truth at a time. She'd spent 3 years being invisible. Now she was going to make sure everyone saw exactly what she was capable of. Not for recognition, not for revenge, but because somewhere out there, someone else was scared to speak up. Someone else thought they couldn't fight back. Someone else believed the powerful were untouchable. And Clara was going to prove them wrong, the same way her brother had proven her wrong, by refusing to give up, even when it cost everything. She walked toward her car, phone to her ear, already planning her next move. Behind her, the courthouse stood tall against the evening sky, a reminder that justice, real justice, was possible. Difficult, messy, slow, but possible. And that was enough. That would always be enough. Because at the end of the day, Clara had learned one undeniable truth. The world didn't change because someone with power decided to be merciful. It changed because someone without power decided to be brave, and she was done being anything less.